Hello, and thank you for joining me at Enjoy Good Lifestyle. My name is Aneta Kostreva, and I'm so excited to be doing our interview with Kelly Simmons. And I know Kelly from Paddle Retreat. Hi, Kelly. Yes, I don't have mine here. How are you?
I'm great, Aneta. How are you?
I'm good, good. I've got a few questions for you today regarding a SAP yoga. How is in Florida? Where are you based, and what is the condition? Can you do the SAP yoga all year round?
So I am based in St. Augustine, Florida. I don't know if you guys can see my business card here. And there's a water body that we go out into. It's called Salt Run. And Salt Run is right next to this famous lighthouse right here. This lighthouse is on a place called Anastasia Island. So you could, in theory, paddleboard year round. However, it becomes really windy from November till about March. And then here it turns over to kiteboarding season. So you'll see people on paddleboards, but they won't be doing yoga. And if they're on paddleboards, they're probably in a wetsuit and surfing. So it does get a little bit too cold. And the main thing is the wind. So for example, today here, it's probably about 10 to 15 miles an hour, the wind, even though the weather is perfect. The other thing that gets in our way here later in the year as we go toward winter and fall and winter is the water temperature. So right now, the water temperature is probably about 75, 76. So when you have an air temperature of 40 and your water is 70, you fall in and come out, you're not real comfortable. So that's what kind of hampers us. But we can paddleboard safely and comfortably from mid-March till first week in November. So that's our season here. What's your season like where you are?
Basically, yeah, from April, I would say, to October. But sometimes we've got storms as well, and we need to postpone the lessons. But basically, yeah, from April to October is a great to do the Pilates stuff. Yeah, because I'm doing Pilates, as you know, you're doing
Yes.
yoga. I am a big fan of yoga as well. Yes.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because I was just thinking of you today. Someone's asking me, well, how do you do yoga on a paddleboard? And just to show you guys again, so if you look in this photo, you see the boards are all lined the same way and they're not moving. So what we do is we have an anchor system and we anchor the boards down so that people stay in one spot, they don't float away. Is that something similar you do in Pilates too?
Yes, exactly. We've got the same system. Yes, the same.
Nice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I would love to do Pilates on a board. That would be awesome. That'd be so much fun. Do you use any specific type of board for your Pilates or just a regular stand-up paddleboard?
Just regular standard paddleboarding, yes.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
So the boards that I have, you can do, in theory, paddleboard yoga on any type of board that has a flat enough deck and a soft enough deck. But the boards that we have, they're from a company called Boga Yoga, Bogayoga. And they have a full-size yoga mat on them. Just the same one as you had in your house if you rolled it out on a paddleboard. So the boards are really wide and really stable, and they're really comfortable to stand up on because they have that mat. The downside of that is in really choppy water, you can still do the yoga, but you're not going to get a good ride on the board because they're so flat. They don't have that V to go through the water. So that's the difference between our boards. You can see it here if you look. They're really flat over here. They're really meant to be like a floating mattress, but they're perfect for yoga. I mean, they're really comfortable, and that mat is grippy whether it's dry or wet, which is great because you do tend to get water splashed on, or if you fall off and get back on and you're wet, the mat still has that grippiness. So.
But are you using inflatable or hardshell?
No, these are hard shell. These are epoxy boards. Actually, it's great that you mentioned that because these boards that I have here, these are the last set of epoxy boards that particular brand made. So now Boga Yoga only makes inflatables.
All right. Okay.
So I have some money makers right there.
And there are alligators and dolphins around when you're doing.
So actually, one of the reasons we go in the water body where we go is because there's no alligators. It's salty enough to keep the gators away, and for the most part, anything that would normally eat you in the ocean is too small in Salt Run. So Salt Run, to give you guys a frame of reference. So for example, say this is Salt Run. The Atlantic Ocean's here, right? We're on the east coast of the United States, so it'd be here. And then interior, we have a river. This water body is in between those two things. So it's really calm. It still gets salt from the Atlantic Ocean, but it's really calm. And it acts like an estuary in essence, which is a nursery for marine life. So we do get dolphins, we get sea turtles. We do have sharks in there, but they're small. They're literally really small species of shark. There's no great whites in there or anything like that. And they're small enough that if you fall on the board, they're taken off before you even see them. So that's one of the reasons we do it in that water body. I will say there are other waterways in the area where I live in St. Johns County, Florida, where people have seen gators cross salt water. So there's something you have to always be on the lookout. But so far, knock wood, we've not seen them in Salt Run where I do my paddleboarding. So just an FYI.
Super. And what actually does SUP yoga?
What we do before we get you on these boards is we give you a lesson on how to use the paddle, the parts of the board, because we refer to them when we do yoga. We teach you how to use those. We get you onto the board and we paddle probably about 10 minutes out to a location before we anchor down. And the anchor location depends on the tides, the wind, the traffic in the area that day. So maybe it's, one day we go 10 minutes north, another day is 5 minutes south. If it's really windy, we just cut across and go maybe a 3-minute paddle before we anchor down. We help you anchor down. And once we get you anchored, then we just go through a yoga sequence. And I tell people, listen, this is a floating studio. So if you see a dolphin swim by, if you see a turtle swim by, feel free to break ranks in that down dog and shout out and scream out, because that's part of why we're out there, right? We're doing yoga on a paddleboard in nature, and you get to see the animals that live there in their environment, right? We have all these parks here in Florida where you can go and pay to swim with dolphins and see a dolphin show, but these dolphins are not on display. You're in their area. So they're going to do what they're naturally doing while you're doing your thing. And that is that's priceless, and there's other times where it does rain a lot here in Florida. So we tend to do the paddleboard yoga earlier in the day because the wind is less boat traffic, more animal activity. But the thing that happens is if you get a rain shower, you tend to get rainbows. And so I can't even tell you, Annetta, the joy of just being out there with that sun and yoga, and you're in such a peaceful, happy, relaxed state, reconnecting with nature, and there's a dolphin and rainbows. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I can imagine the joy. Oh my goodness. I wish to be there. Can you test balance by taking a SUP yoga class?
Yes. So a lot of people will say, I don't have good balance, I'm not going to go. I would let you know that if you can drive a car, you can maneuver a stand-up paddleboard. The boards are really nice and wide, and even though it does challenge your balance, the body's inherently activates that core and activates the muscles on the side of your ankles to get you stable. So one of the reasons that we paddleboard with no shoes is all of the muscles that align your shin, your calf, and the side of your legs, they attach at the bottom of your feet. So when you're touching the board with your bare foot, you're more able to steer that way. So your body naturally takes over and it activates its own balance system. So it is a good way to improve your balance. But if you feel like on land you don't have good balance, you'll be fine on the paddleboard. I've never had anyone on land go, oh, I have horrible balance, and get on the board and go, I still have horrible balance. Your body's innate ability to want to keep yourself upright will kick in.
Yeah, I do agree. Yes. I also have very often a question like, if that paddle board is stable, because people just worried like, oh my goodness, it's just like, I'm really scared to go on that board. But yeah, they are designed to stand on them and not be in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and could you give the audience 7 reasons why you should try SUP yoga?
Yes. So there is a theory, it's called blue mind, right? So this is water, right? The water is blue. And it basically states that anything to do with water, anything that you're doing, if you do it with water, is enhanced. So if you're running by a lake, you'll get more out of your run mentally, physically, if you're near a lake than if you're just near a parking lot. If you're in a restaurant with a water fountain, you'll be more relaxed. You'll have easier time digesting your food than if you're in a restaurant with loud music. And paddleboarding is one of those things. You, by convention, are paddling on the water, but when you're doing yoga on the water and you're combining that experience with all these new activities, you really have to live in the moment. So right there, it takes you from out here, all that crazy stuff. Like people get so nervous. I couldn't find the dock and I couldn't park. And then they get on the board and they have to calm down because that doesn't matter anymore. That's back there. They're on the board. They have to focus in the moment. And when you're in the water like that, you're reconnecting with nature, which a lot of times in our crazy world today, especially with COVID, where we're doing so much online and inside, paddleboarding is still a way to socially distance. So there's one. It's a way to connect with nature and get that blue mind, the extra calming effect. Two, it ups your confidence level because a lot of people, and I'm sure you get this too, Annetta, you and Peter get this, they'll come to you and say, I can't, but you can. And then when they do, they go, oh, I just did that really hard thing. And they feel like really like, I got really good self-confidence, so proud of myself. So it ups your self-confidence. The other one is it reduces your heart rate. It calms you down, right? So you might get excited, but it's a joy. It's not a stressful thing. It's that you stress, that good type of stress. Because you're creating new neural networks in your brain to figure out, okay, I have to put the paddle in on this way, like they taught me. I have to stand up or maybe kneel down because I'm coming near something solid in the water. So there's it, your heart rate, especially when you're doing the yoga, your breathing tends to calm down. So your stress rate is down, and just community, being out and being social. So even if it's just me and a student for a private lesson, they're still new to me and I'm new to them. So it's still that social interaction of, oh my gosh, I'm out in this new place with this beautiful thing. And people really tend to loosen up and open up and be like, I've always wanted to try this. This is so great. And I've lived here for a few years, but I've seen a lighthouse, but never come into the water because like we were just talking about, I'm too afraid, or I thought there were gators in here, or the boats, I was afraid. So it helps on so many levels, mental, physical, spiritual. And then, seeing the dolphins in nature, that's just icing on the cake.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I really like to be around the nature. It's just, you can't compare. And I really like when you said like you've got a outside studio when you are around the nature and the animals, and it's amazing. Yeah.
So one of the things I would want to let listeners know is the benefit of doing yoga outside on a paddleboard is you get to push boundaries you might not be able to do in a studio. So for example, inversions. And down dog counts as an inversion. A lot of people don't think it is, but it's actually an advanced posture. If you fall out on a board, the biggest thing that happens is you get wet. You're not going to injure yourself like you would toppling over in a studio. So for example, one of the poses I love to do on the board is crow pose or crane pose, where you're actually up on your hands and your knees are here. When I'm doing that on the board, it seems scary because the board's moving because I'm displacing water. But I know that if I fall, I just laugh and get back up on the board. And that adds like a level of playfulness to the practice, because then you really get to practice in 3 dimensions on the board instead of just up and down or side to side. You can actually let yourself fall. And I find that once I tell students that, they give themselves that permission, all bets are off. They push themselves. They try poses they never did. They laugh more. They have more fun. The first few minutes, people tend to get that mindset of, I don't want to get wet even though I'm on the water. And I always tell them, bring an extra set of clothes. Bring an extra set of clothes. Yeah. And then once they get that first fall in, that fear is gone. And they go, oh, okay, so that's all that's going to happen. And then we just go and enjoy the rest of the time.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. Yeah, the first thing, they start thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want it to be wet. And then after the session, they are so excited, like, oh my goodness, I finished.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Thank you very much, Kelly, for today. It was my pleasure to have you here. And I hope to see you soon on Florida.
Yes. So to anyone thinking about trying sup Pilates, sup yoga, if you're in the States, in Florida, please come see me. I would love to have you out in beautiful Salt Run with me. If you guys are in the UK and you're thinking about it, go for it. Look up Annetta. She'll get you going, get you feeling confident. And you get bragging rights forever, right? One session is bragging rights forever. So thank you, Annetta. I'm so honored to have been part of this with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.